know what you're referencing, if there is an image or whatever. Do you know what I mean? If it's
definitely
like that, just for
definitely. Well, this is the Art and Spirituality Show. I'm Dominic Anglum. Welcome to the show, and today we're joined by a very special guest, Mrs. Mo Kelly, all the way from Dublin, Ireland. Thanks for joining us, Mo.
Pleasure, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And as I was just explaining to Mo, this is it's an experiment. It's an experiment today because it's my first time using StreamYard, so you can enjoy my technical, magical skills while we're talking, and be wowed and impressed by my skills. Yes, I say. Yeah, so I mean, what an interesting life you've had, Mo. You started off studying, I guess, fine art at DIT Portland Road, right?
I did, yes, that's right, fine art painting.
And were you?
So yeah, that was kind of, I suppose painting was sort of my first love. I kind of, I guess, always wanted to be an artist, but it was during my time in art college that I started. I was always really, really into music anyway. But it was kind of during that time that I guess I started to kind of put music together, and the sort of DJ thing kind of came out of that as well.
Yeah. And I'm curious, like, you know, when you were younger, when you were like a child and stuff, were you the child that was always coloring, always painting, all that sort of stuff? Or did that come later?
No, I was. And, you know, I had both my parents really encouraged me. And I always kind of wonder, is it sort of nature versus nurture, you know? My mom especially, you know, would always give me paints. Both my parents were teachers, a maths teacher, spawn of a maths teacher and an English teacher. So there was just always kind of, the education was kind of the big thing. So if you showed any interest in anything, they went to absolute lengths to show you everything that they possibly could about whatever subject you were into. So it was amazing. So I had my mom's family came from a load of teachers as well, and my grandfather founded a school, and there was classrooms. And I remember my earliest memory as being a really small child over there and being allowed to paint. So I was given paints before even pencils, as far as I can remember, and kind of always encouraged, like allowed to make a mess and all those kind of things. So there was just creativity was in the house, and it was encouraged, and I'm forever indebted to them.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. It does make such a difference, though, doesn't it? Like when children are encouraged to do things as a child. I mean, any type of encouragement, it goes so far.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, totally. I mean, I think everybody's creative. You know, everybody has something that they can do that taps into their creative side. And I think sometimes I wonder, is it just that, you know, I guess there's maybe a propensity, or maybe there's what makes people turn out to be artists or follow that career is that they want to do it all the time, or there's that sort of need to do it all the time. But I certainly think that everybody has something that they can do creatively. And I think we tend to compartmentalize people into just, you're either creative or you're, you know, right brain or left brain, or, you know, and I think that can be kind of damaging. It's not necessarily, everybody's got kind of the duality, you know. So I always think it's important to encourage children, especially, and adults. everybody have fun and be creative, you know. It's a great expression and outlet, especially in these days.
Definitely. And the more creative we can get, I guess the less stressed we're going to be as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, funny enough, creativity, when you're actually doing it when you actually have to do it, it can be stressful. When it's not, if the painting isn't working out or something, that could actually just be just as bad. But yeah, certainly, I mean, it's important to use all facets of your creativity and brain, you know.
Yeah, and were your parents artistic?
Yes, well, my mother she was an English teacher, and she was one of those people who would close her eyes listening to music, you know, that kind of thing. Like she just loved the arts, and things made her cry, and music made her cry, and she was really, really good fun. So anything artistic or creative, or like, she was hugely encouraged reading, and she always read to us as children, and you know, any kind of musical, anything to do with music or the arts. She brought us to ballet and opera. She loved opera. And so she just encouraged kind of everything. But she didn't draw or paint herself. But she just was an absolute fan of anything like that. And then my dad is a maths teacher. So he's kind of the other side of the spectrum. But he absolutely appreciated and listened to music and classical music, and still does, and was always very, very encouraging. So
nice. Yeah, so you grew up in an encouraging environment then.
Yes, I did. I was very lucky.
And what was the story with when you were doing fine art in DIT? Were you drawn to, like, did your art start to influence your music and stuff like that, or was there vice versa?
I think, well, I sort of, I suppose I was always really, really into music. So obviously grew up in Clontarf, and there was a famous disco there called The Grove, and a very famous DJ who I think he DJ'd for like 40 years or something like that. I mean, generation after generation. Like my brothers and sisters went to the same kind of disco and heard the same, and he was like, playing basically the same music. He just had a really great music selection. So I was really influenced, I guess, by my older brothers and sisters' music. So that would have been sort of like kind of Bowie and Talking Heads and Devo and all that. And then then that kind of matured into, I suppose, kind of more indie stuff. And I was a bit of a cure head and like a bit of fancied myself as a bit of a goth. Was really into Nine Inch Nails, still am.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails are the best.
Yeah, totally. And I'm a huge fan. So I kind of loved all that. And then I guess the Chemical Brothers happened, I suppose, that album, and I'm left field, and that just all kind of brought me over to the dark side, I suppose, over to dance music. And I haven't really looked back since, but I'm generally a music fan. Like, I just love all kinds of music. But our college, I started putting together, I suppose, more sort of ambient stuff and sort of soundscapes, really. It was more, I guess, a little bit more abstract. I started putting that together for people's fashion shows and art exhibitions and, sculpture shows and kind of symposiums and things like that. And then kind of concurrently at the same time, and I'd always really been into music. My mates were all DJs. I never thought I could DJ. I was always just terrified. I'm kind of an introvert. Wasn't really terrified when the idea of getting up on stage, but I loved music, and I was really annoying. Like, I'd go up and go, "Did you play? Third track you played, whatever remix of whatever." Like, I was a total nerd. I knew all of the tracks, but I just couldn't find kind of get the courage to do it. And then a mate of mine, they were just sick of me, I think, because I kept talking about it, and they kept going, "Will you just learn how to DJ?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, and I'm too afraid," and blah. And I was the only girl, and I just was a bit intimidated by the whole thing. And then a mate of mine was just like, "Okay, look, I'm just going to book you for a gig. It's in 3 months' time, and it's a support slot. It's half an hour. Get a half an hour set together and just do it." So I borrowed decks from a mate, kind of taught myself. They were like 12/10s. Taught myself how to DJ and beat match and all that kind of stuff. As much as you can in 3 months, you can kind of get the rudimentals, the fundamental down.
Yeah.
And then I wrote out, like, I literally wrote out what I was going to play and exactly where I was going to mix tracks in. Like, just so funny. Like, wrote out like the timings. Play 10 seconds of this, and then at this bit, mixing this and everything. So I wrote it all out. I still have the little. I used to have it as a sort of little talisman in my record bag. I still have it. My first ever gig. So basically, played the gig. It was a really great gig. It was called 3345. And it was a really cool lineup, and I played the gig, and it was just really lucky. There was promoters there, and I got booked for another gig like straight away, and that was kind of it. Then it was like, okay, right, that's it. And then obviously kind of I'd say it was probably a couple of years then of kind of more practicing and all the rest of it before kind of things really took off. But at least that was my first. If that hadn't happened, I don't know, like maybe I would have done it, but sometimes you just need somebody else to push you, and I do. I need kind of a bomb lid under me to get anything done. I'm one of those type of people.
Yeah,
but it all worked out, thankfully.
I think that's great, though, isn't it? Like, when you do kind of get pushed, and like you have to, you're kind of given a deadline, or you're given an opportunity. Essentially, like something opens up, and it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to push myself out of my comfort zone here.
Exactly. And you also have sort of, I think, the ignorance of youth, like I think I was just kind of like, oh yeah, fine. How hard can it be? I'll definitely get it done in 3 months. Like now, I don't know if I'd have, just, I think as well, it's kind of a combination of those things when you're young and you're like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it.
I have there's a great photo of you here, which I'm just going to put up now. And it's from the Incognito exhibition that you had a couple of years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that, about some of the artists that contributed to that, and how that kind of came about?
It was really, really brilliant idea. It's Jack and Jill Children's Foundation, and they had this genius idea of getting artists to paint on a postcard, and you don't sign it, and then they sell the postcards. Every single postcard gets sold for €50, and you don't know who you're buying, so you could be buying, like, Bono was in there, and then they have like just millions of artists. I think they had something like 2,000 artists last year, and of various kind of fame levels, I suppose, or various sort of well-known artists and then not so well-known artists. But it's really cool because you're actually just buying what you want. Like people are going in and viewing the exhibition, and it's fun because you think you can guess, because if you recognize people's work, you kind of go, okay, I'm pretty sure, that's Pauline Buick, or I'm pretty sure that's whatever, and then you buy them and then you find it afterwards, and it's only €50, so you're not going to be hugely disappointed if it's not who you thought it was.
Yeah.
And also you're buying based on what you like, so it's really cool. And they raised, oh God, I think they raised, no, I'm not quite sure, but I think was it 40 grand or something last year, just amazing. So that's been going on for the last, I think it's about 6 years they've been doing it. And it's just such a clever idea, and it's great. And I do my postcards every year, so I'm doing them at the moment. And so it'll be happening again next year, probably springtime or maybe a little bit later. And they send the artists out the little postcards. So you get 3 postcards and you paint them and you send them in. So it's a great idea.
It's a fantastic idea, and I'm sure I'm sure it garnered a lot of interest as well with that many people involved.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It's so clever. It just kind of, and they went online this year for the first time, and they were very worried because there was a whole element of people coming in, and they'd had open days within the Solomon Gallery, and you could go in and view the paintings and actually see them, and then you'd come back and buy them on the day. And there were queues outside and everything. So they did it online this year, and they were really worried that it wouldn't work, but it was actually a resounding success. Like they sold out, I think, in an hour. Which was unbelievable. So it just shows you the sort of demand for such a clever idea.
Definitely.
And it's great fun for everybody. It's great fun for all the artists. It's great fun for us to see what everybody else does. And again, like a postcard size is quite challenging. I tend to work really, really big. So working on a postcard is a completely different animal. Like you might think it's easier, but it's actually kind of more difficult because you've got to get more detail in and kind of figure out, scale your work, Yeah,
I was gonna ask you about that actually. I was gonna ask you. I was curious to find out if it was that you took, an existing painting and you just reduced it down, or was it in fact that you actually painted onto the postcard? So that's
no, paint onto the postcard. I mean, some artists do that, but I've always kind of, because it's just so tempting when you send lovely little blank cards. You just kind of have to do something with them. So I tend to do little mini paintings specifically for it, and I try to get whatever it tends to be, whatever kind of series I'm doing at the time. I'll do 3 little miniature versions of that series.
Yeah.
But they end up taking as nearly as long as a big piece. It's kind of odd.
I could see that. It must be so much more intricate than on the bigger painting.
It is
because as we can see from some of your videos, which I've been strategically posting while we've been talking.
Excellent.
You normally paint on quite big canvases, don't you, Mo?
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy working big. It's just, obviously they take a bit longer, and there's more space obviously to kind of get your whatever kind of image you're trying to do. But I find them a little bit more sort of submersive, because I tend to paint, I guess it's kind of a case of paint what you know. I'm quite a figurative painter, and a lot of the scenes I paint are set at night time, so I use a lot of kind of iridescent. I use a lot of gold and silver leaf, and kind of iridescent paints, pigment paints as well. So I love that kind of trickery of twilight. I'm always trying to get that kind of slightly otherworldly, kind of another dimension kind of feeling into the painting. And I think it's sort of influenced by, again, from folklore and kind of poetry and books that I read growing up, and that kind of slightly kind of magical kind of wonder, childlike wonder maybe, when you're I grew up in Clontarf. I used to always go to St. Anne's Park. I used to play in St. Anne's Park all the time, so there's a lot of trees feature. I think we realize as you grow up that your childhood does creep into kind of what you end up doing. And obviously, being a night owl, being a DJ, was nighttime is what I know, and night scenes were for a long time, where my life, not so much now, but early now, it's amazing. But so I love that kind of. It's basically the light. I'm trying to capture that kind of weird twilight kind of feeling when you kind of think anything is possible. So I just really painting big is really quite freeing, and I guess you're always trying to change things up as an artist. You're always trying to kind of try new things. So I hadn't worked very, very large pieces in a while.
Yeah.
And actually lockdown, because they're more expensive to make. You have to buy more materials, and they're more expensive. They take more time. So I was tending to do kind of more medium-sized pieces. And in lockdown, I was like, you know what, I had a really huge canvas and I really wanted to do it. So I just started working bigger, and then I got a few commissions that were again larger pieces. And now that's kind of my buzz at the moment. Now I'm doing really quite big paintings, and then plan for 2021 as well, is to kind of getting an even bigger canvas made up, because they can only go to a certain size before you have to start to make your own, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I really digging it. I'm really loving working big these days.
I suppose as well, in terms of being able to work big, you need to have the actual physical space to create the thing.
You do, and that's the whole other kind. And then they are slightly more problematic. They're kind of, because they're bigger, they're going to be more expensive. So, you know, you're kind of looking at maybe, you know, a sort of a commissioned piece, or maybe a piece for a larger home, or for maybe a hotel space, or a more commercial space, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a slightly different thing. But it's good to just kind of keep your options open and have those, you know, to fall back and have all different sizes.
Yeah, definitely.
Pieces out there, you know.
I can imagine that people have varying different sizes of places where they live and stuff like that as well. So I suppose they have to be able to fit the piece of art into their home as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, but actually, you find that people doing sort of extensions and things like that, like it's weird. Art kind of goes through slight trends as well, and actually bigger pieces are quite popular, because people have maybe gable end walls, or you know, they've kind of gone to full ceiling height and things like that. And sometimes really big pieces of art can actually make a room look bigger and give you a better sense of space.
Yeah.
So it's funny, they do kind of follow trends to a certain extent. I mean, art is kind of, you know, should be timeless, but there are obviously trends, and kind of even framing and things can go through different kind of trends and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. It's always changing.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to ask you as well. I want to ask you about your influences in terms of, like, because there is a magic. There is a real magic in your paintings. Some of these forests, they really remind me of a kind of a gothic. There's a real gothic feel to them, and I want to ask you about the different mediums that you use it, like insofar as like the gold leaves and stuff like that, and the different the different additional mediums that you add in, as well as the paint, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I'd start off with kind of a basic drawing, and then I kind of go in obviously with paint, and then I sort of build it up in layers. So I'd use a lot of charcoal as well. I like to give that sort of texture and kind of it gives it a bit of depth, I suppose. But for most of, I mean, I'd always take a lot of photos. Like, I do use visual references, as I say. It's figurative. I mean, it's got an abstract element to it, but it's figurative. You can tell what it is. It's tree. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd always have a lot of actual references of real places, because I like to kind of add them kind of abstract kind of elements to it later. So they'd always be based in a real thing. So I'd have all those source references, and then I'd sort of, you know, abstract and add the kind of emotion and feeling kind of later on. Yeah. And I always kind of feel it needs to be grounded in reality in order for the abstraction and the dreamscape to feel lifelike, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So I'd always have kind of my backup and sketches and drawings as well of things, and then I just kind of work on it and add the other elements, and then the gold leaf would kind of go on last, because that's a little bit tricky, and then that'd be my process more or less. And I work in watercolor as well. So that obviously watercolor is different. Watercolor is just drawing in watercolor, and it's kind of less is more. Yeah. And because the kind of more you add to watercolor, the more you can kind of mess it up. So it's kind of it's a completely different process actually. It's more kind of it's faster.
It's faster, but I guess when you're adding in the additional elements like this gold leaf and stuff that I see that you have on the cranchi, the fairy tree painting here, I suppose when you add in those extra layers, it must literally make the picture more 3D.
Yeah, it does. And you're always kind of looking at things. You try to look at things in different lights as well with paintings. Like natural light is obviously preferable, but in the wintertime that can be difficult. So you end up, I have a kind of a daylight light that I use, but it's not, it works, but it's not the perfect substitute, but it allows you to work a little bit later. So you've always got to be aware of kind of living with the painting and then making sure that you see it in every light, because obviously when it hangs in a home, it's going to be in every type of light. So you have to make sure it works in every type of light. And obviously with the gold leaf, they work really well if you have a light on them, like an artist light or a picture light above them.
Right.
Because then it kind of glows and it kind of, when the light hits it, it'll shimmer and it'll kind of look like a light itself. So there are all those kind of elements. I'm always trying to capture that light, that sort of dark light, that sort of dark luminescence that you get at nighttime. So I'm very conscious of that. So you tend to kind of live with the painting for a long time. And if you're looking at that little sort of time lapse, you can see like it's days and days and days and days of painting, and then kind of coming in, and I'd maybe do details that don't matter, sort of like maybe outlines and things with my, when I don't have natural light, and then I'd keep the gilding and things like that with the gold leaf for natural light. Yeah,
that makes sense. And I suppose judging by the time lapse videos, I can see that it's, days have gone by. We can tell by the fact that you've changed clothes as you come back in again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and you can also see, you can see my roots are growing out as well.
Well, folks, we're talking to Mo Kelly here, a fine artist from Dublin, and also a DJ, an established DJ. And if you have any questions, you can comment on our streams, and we will for sure get back to you. We did receive a question from somebody in London. And I'm going to ask that question. But first of all, I'm going to attempt to take a break, okay? I'm going to attempt to take a break. And let's see how that works out for us. And we'll be right back. We'll be right back after these messages. So just stay on, and we'll be right back after these messages for more art and spirituality after this short break. Okay, that was super smooth. Now, if I could just get the buttons to work, I'll be fine. All right, so I've got the gaze going on. We'll be right back after these short messages. Go. Yes, indeed. The Art and Spirituality Show. That was the shortest break, I think, that's ever been taken in the history of radio right there. But we're doing it. It's happening. It's working. We're talking to a fine artist and DJ Mo Kelly via phone, via internet. I actually was attempting to call you via Skype, but that failed. So we're on the WhatsApp here. Modern technology 101, Dominic.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's really great to talk to you. I saw you playing. I was working at Electric Picnic there 2 years ago, and on the first night before the festival starts, they have music, I guess, for the people who are working there. And I strolled over to the Salty Dog stage, and I was so happy I did, because you were playing. And the music, I have to say, the music was pretty banging. Like, the whole crowd was hopping, and it was the vibe. The vibe there was just, it was electric, wasn't it?
Oh, it was great fun. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was such fun. That's kind of like, I just love playing festivals, because obviously I do a lot of kind of, I suppose, launch parties and events and things like that. And you can't really go too mental, they're fairly subdued, or at least people aren't dancing, put it that way. People are, kind of, you're launching something, so people are just kind of chit-chatting and whatever. And you can play kind of eclectic, cool stuff, but you can't really bang the arse out of it, which I love doing. Yeah. So it's just it was really good fun. And it was such a great idea, because it started out I think that was the first year they did it, actually. And they decided they were going to open the gates a day earlier. And obviously crew are there anyway. So I mean, there's a significant amount of people already on site at the festival, but they decided they were going to open the gates and try and get people to come down a little bit earlier to the festival. So they did it again last year, and it was even more packed last year. So it's just a really good idea. It's a really fun slot because you're actually playing the last slot on the Thursday, so before the festival has kind of officially started, but the gates are now officially open.
Yeah.
So it's a really good crack, and like people were really up for it. So it was just really unexpectedly fun. You know, that kind of way. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I wasn't sure whether it would just be really chilled out, and I just kind of played whatever. And I just decided, look, I'll play to the crowd and see what happens. And they were really up for it. So then I was really up for it, and it ended up being really, really good fun. So yeah, it was great. God, I so miss it. My God. I would have loved to have done it again this year, but sure, next year, hopefully.
I know. Then we have to, all we can do is think about next year. That's all we can do.
Yeah. It's going to be some party. It's going to be some party, right?
I feel like it's going to be the party to end all parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we get back out into it,
Absolutely.
It's going to be amazing. But how does it work these days with DJing gigs and stuff like that? Do you do you get approached a lot to do like corporate events and things like that, or do festivals contact you, or do you contact them?
They contact me. I'm kind of lucky enough now. I've been doing it. Oh God, I've been doing it 20 years. It certainly feels like
20 years, 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd tend to be a lot of kind of people, through PR companies and things like that. So they'd come back to me and use me for different clients,
Yeah.
So yeah, mostly through PR companies. A few directly, a few through the website, a few through social media and things like that. But yeah, that's the way it generally worked. So it's kind of word of mouth, I guess, as well a bit. But yeah, they were great. I mean, they were great gigs. God, back in the day, God, it was like, it was great fun. And I mean, I actually had a load of gigs just as lockdown happened that week, St. Patrick's week. I actually had a load of them all lined up, so they all got cancelled. So hopefully now they're saying they're postponing them. So hopefully maybe spring 2021 we'll be back at it. But yeah, it's obviously changed for everybody, and I think I've been sort of heartened. I suppose in the first lockdown there was just loads of DJ mixes, and I found that really kind of. As a DJ, like I ended up just listening to loads of other DJs, which I wouldn't get the time to do before necessarily. I mean, I listened to a few, but not as sort of religiously as I ended up doing so. And I'd go out like on my walk every day. I live in Sandymount, so I walk along the beach. I know every pebble and stone on that beach. My God, at this stage. But I'd walk along and like just listen to different DJs and get like emotional. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, oh, it's amazing, and like just actually getting the chance to kind of really listen. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So it's actually been really kind of heartwarming and sweet. And then of course you get to actually see, some people are doing like live streams and you get to see their setup, and as a DJ that's always a bit of a nerd, so it's kind of fun to see what they're using, all their gear. And yeah, it's a whole other thing, isn't it?
It is. And it's I feel like it's kind of it has been a bit of a bit. It feels like we've lived through a little bit of a renaissance in terms of like creativity and how artists have been expressing themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just hope that we kind of appreciate how important art is to our lives. I think that maybe we kind of, it's so vital. It's so important. And, we need to support artists, and kind of my heart breaks for I guess like crew as well, like everybody who works in putting together shows and things that employs so many people, and there's catering, and there's just so much to think about. And these are really specifically skilled jobs and skilled people. And it's not a case of just anybody can do it, or you can just kind of rehire people. Like these are people, you need really great people doing these things in order for all of these events to just work.
Big time.
Aside from the artists themselves, obviously, but you actually need that support network of people who are that skilled. So I just really hope that that they all. I mean, I think in Ireland anyway, there's been some fairly decent sort of support system set up. But after campaigning, like there was a bit of a period there where nothing was happening. Everybody was just in shock. So hopefully that'll be enough to sustain people, and that we can all be ready to go next summer. Yay.
Definitely, definitely. We have to hope. We have to live it like it's going to happen. I think, I think that's going to be
absolutely
the kind of best way to go about it.
So important. Yeah, totally.
Okay,
totally.
we gotta
live it, expect it.
Expect it, exactly. Put it on our vision board and manifest it.
Yeah. That's
we received a couple of questions, and I want to ask them to you so that they don't get skipped. The first question is from Ivor in Dublin, and Ivor asks, is it challenging making a living selling art in terms of percentage galleries take?
Yes. The short answer, yes, Ivor, it is. It's a bit of a killer. I mean, it's a necessary evil. Obviously, galleries will have buyers, and the good ones will anyway. They'll have, and I mean, it's a tough gig for them as well. Obviously, they have overheads. They've got, they've got to pay. It's a necessary evil, basically. But yeah, it is 50%, and that's after you've spent all your money on framing and materials and blah blah blah. So it is always an outlay for the artist.
Yeah,
but it's invaluable, the contacts that galleries have, and also when galleries will have buyers in mind, they will have their clients in mind, and it's curated. So it's vitally important. Like, I think life without galleries in the art world would be pretty grim. So I do both. I mean, I also sell online. And I sell directly as an artist as well, to a certain extent, with commissions and things like that. So it's a bit of a minefield, and you have to be careful. You have to make sure that your artwork is priced the same pretty much everywhere, unless someone's coming directly to you, which is a little bit different. With the commission and things like that, you can kind of price it yourself because that's a one-off thing, and that's sort of accepted. But you can't. It's all difficult because, say for example, if you sell a painting through a gallery and it sells for a certain amount of money, you can't then undersell your work, because the person who's bought that painting is then going to think, well, what? Oh my God, my work's been devalued, or it's not worth as much. So it's a minefield to try and negotiate it successfully. But you just have to, you have to kind of stick to your guns, I think.
Yeah.
But it is. I think all artists find it difficult, and then sometimes if you've had to work for, there's a sort of a misconception, I think, with new art is better art and that older work isn't as valuable, and that can be a bit strange as well, because sometimes an older work just maybe never saw the light of day, or is a better painting in fact, and the newer work isn't. And there's this kind of newness thing that a lot of, I think, the sort of online galleries seem to push for. They want new content constantly from artists, so they'd want like upload a new painting a week, and like for me that just isn't possible. I don't work that fast.
That's crazy.
So so it can be. I mean, some people do, and that's cool. But, it's this kind of idea of newness isn't always necessarily right, I feel. But it's fun. It's fun trying to figure it all out. But good question, Ivan.
Great question, Ivor. Thanks for that, Ivor. Another question. This is from Gina in Wexford. And Gina is also a fine artist. And she asks, how does your guest promote her work internationally?
Good question. Social media is amazing. So I always try and put up new work, and I think it's really consistency with putting up kind of new content and just constantly sort of talking about, what you're doing. And even if the painting isn't finished, like put up pictures of maybe the process as well. And then I'm with a few online galleries as well, which is, again, as I'm saying, it's as important as the terrestrial ones. I mean, it's really great to be in galleries in your home country and in your home city, because they're actual people that you actually get to meet, and that's kind of, obviously that's really important and valid. But internationally, it can be great as well. I'm on Saatchi online, which I find good. I'm also on Singulart, which is a really great website. Again, that's curated. You get invited to go onto it, but I'm pretty sure you can apply to it.
Yeah.
But it's a nice one because it's slightly different in that it is curated, and they have specific buyers in mind, and they have targeted marketing and all sorts of stuff, which I don't quite understand completely because it's quite complicated. But with all their algorithms and stuff, but they actually end up sort of sending out specific paintings to people who they know are searching for your type of work.
Very cool.
So they're actually really good. So I would get some sort of profile on some international websites, and really importantly, don't, with this whole thing with artists, you constantly get asked to pay to display.
Yeah.
And my advice would be don't. a proper gallery won't ask you for any money.
Yeah.
Their whole deal is that they're going to sell. They're taking 50%, and that 50% is, is because they're going to sell for you. So you shouldn't have to pay for anything. And even the art shows, a gallery should pay for that. I find it really kind of, I get so many emails because I've got my website up there, and I get a lot, my email address is on the website, so I get a lot of kind of junk mail, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal the amount of pay to display things I keep getting, so that's obviously kind of a thing at the moment. So try and avoid those. So basically, you shouldn't have to pay for it. But you will have to, contact people a few times, and, just keep your portfolio organized and updated would be the main thing, even though that can kind of sometimes be kind of difficult to do. It's a huge job in itself, but yeah, try and keep your work updated, and try and get good quality photographs, even just your phone, but just make sure there's nice natural light and that it's kind of showing. Even little videos as well of your art is kind of a good way to kind of bring people in.
Absolutely, that was a great and extensive answer there for Gina, for your question. Thanks for that question, Gina. We're skipping between your art and your DJing now, Mo, with another question. Mm-hmm. This question's from Mark in London, and Mark asks, what was the best ever party that you DJ'd at?
Oh, the best ever party, God.
It's a big question.
I guess, yeah, it is a good question. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think I always really, really enjoy playing festivals in Ireland, because like Electric Picnic and all those, because generally all my mates are also down there and they're DJs as well, and they're all partying. So you actually get to party and actually get to have fun and see other people DJ, and it's not like a gig, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I had a residency in Dubai for a couple of years. That was great fun. I used to go over, you'd go for like 3 or 4 months at a time, and gigs. So that was really cool. But I think probably the most rock and roll gig would be, I was flown to India for one night to do a gig. So that was like probably the most rock and roll thing I've ever done. It was like a 5-star hotel opening thing, and they obviously just had more money than sense. And I was like, sure, yeah, cool, no worries. I was playing vinyl at that stage. So it's like, it's no idea what they want, or how long it would play for, or what they wanted, and blah blah blah. So I brought 3 bags of vinyl with me. I remember it was Aer Lingus was one of the flights. And they were so sound. They were like, they totally let me bring all the records on. And then I think I was on to Air something else. I can't remember for the India leg of it. And it was a total nightmare. I had to explain what everything was. And they let me away with it though back in the days. But my God, these days it probably would have cost thousands to get them over. But
they used to be more flexible and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, they definitely did. God, they definitely did. Because I was always bringing vinyl with me. Like it was, especially over to Dubai as well. And they were always kind of sound about it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't fly these days, I don't think.
It literally would not fly.
Now I have a tiny controller, so it's like, those days are over.
Good. You've become, I guess you have to. I guess the less stuff you have to carry, the more places you can travel easier, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like even with the controller, it's kind of just about fits in an overhead. But I mean, even more so, I guess the little key cards now would be kind of the way forward. Literally, you could just go with the key ring.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the mind boggles what I think of how many record bags I used to bring with me to gigs. Like it's just, I have the chiropractic bills to prove it as well.
Yes, so really, I mean, a lot has changed in DJing, right? A lot has changed in DJing over the last 20 years. Have you seen a big difference in the clubbing scene, for example, in Dublin? Have you seen a big difference?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be the whole sort of, in my day it was, blah, blah, blah was so much better. But I think, like we really deserve an amazing nightlife scene in Dublin. Like it's such a cool city, and we've got the whole kind of trad music pub kind of thing down. Like that's perfect. And it's great crack, and it's a great scene, and it's really healthy. But we just kind of killed dance music some kind of mid-90s or something, I think, with the kind of super pubs came in, and when pubs started opening later and getting their later license, and people didn't have to go clubbing, and it all sort of just got a bit watered down. So the whole thing just got a bit samey. And I think it's changing. I mean, it's changing in recent years because obviously there's always great music coming up. There's always brilliant DJs and musicians constantly kind of working in the underground, more or less.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a scene, but it's just not as promoted, I don't think, as it possibly could be. And I think there was talk that we were going to have a nightmare. Did you hear about this? Like a Lord Mayor for Dublin for nightlife.
Yeah.
And it's best title ever, The Nightmare.
The Nightmare.
And, yeah. So they were. This was planned. I think, was it for this? It might have been this year. Maybe it's probably been postponed to 2021. But I think it's a great idea, and I think we need to kind of look at licensing laws and just get, I suppose, the more eclectic clubs will get a following, because I mean, Irish people just love dance music. Like, Irish people are really discerning, and there's a scene for everybody. There's definitely enough people to warrant it, and it's just weird that Dublin kind of, missed out a bit, when all the kind of decent clubs closed. And I just really hope now, obviously with what's been going on, that will survive, and that we'll kind of hopefully with a renewed respect for nightlife. And,
yeah, I mean,
with the renewed kind of vigor.
I certainly hope so, because I remember, going back 2000, 2001, the clubbing scene in Dublin was like really good. There was some really good nights on.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You had the whole switch bass spin thing on a Thursday, and
yeah,
I remember having
and loads of international DJs as well. They were constantly over. Like, it was great. The quality was amazing, and obviously homegrown DJs as well. It was a great time. So
yeah. Well, hopefully it can come back, because you're dead right. I think Irish people especially, we love going out dancing, don't we? Like, it's in our blood almost,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's probably because we have from the tradition of Irish music, like there's a Dowsa tradition, we all like to go out and go a bit mental and actually move around and dance. So yeah, there is no reason. The mind boggles as to why, because there's certainly, if it's down to commerce, and there's certainly money to be made in that area. So yeah, I just hope hopefully 2021 will be our year for Dublin nightlife.
2021 could be the year for Dublin nightlife. You heard it here first, folks. from the iconic Mo Kelly. If she's saying it has to be true, right? Hey, I want to talk about an exhibition that you were a part of in 2014 called was it in New York? And
yes.
Yeah, how did you get involved in that?
Yeah, that was through kind of through online, through my website, really.
Yeah.
I was contacted by the CME. It's like CME is the kind of exhibition space.
Yeah.
And they contacted me, and initially, I kind of thought, is this for real? Like, is this a real thing? And it was, thank God. So yeah, it was basically they had an exhibition in New York, but it was kind of the first time that they had done this. They used one of the huge displays in Times Square, and they actually projected the artworks onto it. So it's that massive big Times Square billboard, basically.
Yeah.
So, and it was kind of a public art space thing. So that was their first time doing it, and it's obviously gone from strength to strength. And then now, of course, in COVID times, it's even more vital. So they're still going. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. So I have all the images from my painting up on Times Square, like, absolutely ginormous. Talk about me. That's a big canvas.
Yeah, my God, that must have been insane.
So yeah, that was cool. Yeah, and then they had a terrestrial exhibition as well with the paintings, obviously. But that was the unique, I suppose, their unique selling point with it was that it was going to be they were projecting them up. So yeah, it was cool.
And of course, I mean, being a DJ as well, when you are at some of these art exhibitions, you do have the option, I suppose, of jumping on the decks as well, which did happen before, right?
It did. Yeah, it was for Art Mosh, which are a sort of a art and music kind of, I suppose, symposium, or they're very much involved in both areas.
Yeah.
So it's like the Nixon. It's sponsored by Nixon, who make kind of surf gear and watches and things like that. So they had an exhibition that went kind of all around the world. It started out, it was in Nice, which is kind of their home country. And then they went over to kind of the west coast of America. So traveled all the way up through there. So that was really cool. And I actually got to play DJ at the opening of the France event. So that was really cool. So that was actually the first time that it's kind of, they've merged, that art and DJing have merged. So yeah, it was fun. It worked for me anyway. So
hey, I mean, it's
yeah, well, it's fun. I mean, it's I suppose for me, I keep them very, very separate because I find that obviously DJing is a lot more kind of, I'm a bit of an introvert. So obviously painting, you paint on your own, and you tend to do everything kind of as you know, solo. And then obviously DJing is the complete opposite of that. So I find that it brings a nice balance, I think, to both. And I really miss DJing. Like I thought initially with lockdown, I didn't miss it as much because I was like, oh, got a weekend off, it was all a bit kind of, oh, this is fun. This is like, oh, it's a Saturday and I can, can watch a movie, I can stay in or whatever.
Yeah.
But that wore off. And now I properly miss it because it's an outlet and it's fun and obviously just humans. I miss people,
Of course you do. Of course you do. And it's totally, I mean, God, it's totally normal to want to be out there, and want to be back out there. But you do have a lot of your music, well, you do have some of your music online. I know that you're on Mixcloud, and you have your own SoundCloud as well, right?
Yep, I am. And yeah, and stuff on my website as well. I kind of link things to my website as well. So obviously Instagram and Facebook as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I would definitely encourage people to check out Mo's work. If you haven't already done so, you can check out, of course, Mo's website, which is just mokelly.com. And you can also definitely check out her Mixcloud. I listened to 3 of the mixes last night. I listened to them on repeat. They were pretty good, I have to say. It's, the one from the most recent one, which was just 2020, it said, that had some nice references to the whole Black Lives Matter movement as well, which was really cool, I thought.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, that was basically the first lockdown, and I was just so, I guess, shocked and kind of appalled and sort of freaked out with the whole thing. And obviously I grew up, like when I started DJing first, it was hip hop. Like hip hop was my absolute, just obsessed with hip hop. And I just kind of couldn't believe that what was going on in the world. And I was kind of just and I just kept thinking, I kept hearing kind of bits of tracks, like little just vocals and snippets, and just sort of these things were kind of sticking in my head. Obviously then kind of watching some amazing speeches, and I started thinking, I wonder kind of if I overlay that speech into a track, or I started hearing sound bites, like just hearing little bits and almost kind of DJing in my head. I know that sounds a bit mental, but like on my walks, I kind of start thinking about it. So it was probably the most thought out mix I've probably ever done. And I'm not usually overtly, I suppose, political in DJing. I mean, you can't really be. But this was just something that I was just kind of, I guess I was just so upset. Like I just cried the whole time. I just couldn't believe that this was going on in the world. So, or that it had come to this. And, the T word, the he who shall not be named.
He who shall not be ever named again.
What he was bringing out in people, and just the baseness of it all, and just this sort of injustice and just the craziness of it. And it was far from this. We were all raised and blah, blah, blah. So so that was my kind of slightly protest mix. And then it just turned out, it started out quite serious, and then it just got really fun because I wanted to include, obviously I incorporated some of the speeches from the marches. I incorporated some speeches from some of the Dublin marches as well. And then I kind of wanted it to be uplifting. I wanted it to be kind of a message of hope. Like I didn't want it to be all sort of doom and gloom. So it starts out, it's a little bit angry and sort of stompy, and then it's sort of, there's a bit of a story throughout the whole thing. There's a bit of a story arc in the actual mix with the cut of vocals, and it took me a really long time actually to do, because it was, I kind of pitched the vocals and things so that everything was kind of musically sound. And that was it. So that was my mix, but it was great because it was at a time when it kind of kept me busy, and I was really, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with that mix. So it was fun.
It's a really good mix, and I have to say I really like the references to the Black Lives Matter movement, because I think, and I love that you included little sound bites from the Irish protests as well. It's great to hear an Irish accent in there. Just it's a show of solidarity, I think, more than anything.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's the amazing thing. Like we are, it sounds so cheesy and hippie, but we are all one. And I think it took something like that to just wake up the whole world to, this is just, you know, you have to speak out. You have to, you know, because normally you kind of see things go, that's terrible and blah, blah, blah. But when it's something like that, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think it's the beauty that it happened during the pandemic, that it had people's attention. People had the time to kind of think about it and really feel it. And, you know, everybody was rightly, obviously outraged. So yeah. And obviously there was protests here in Dublin as well. And it just kind of woke people up a bit, I think. So, you know, no harm in that.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you then, like, because I know that you just mentioned that obviously you're not normally political, you know, with your music, I guess. And I guess also not with your paintings, or have you ever been political with your paintings before, or is that something that you might want to do in the future? Or, I don't know.
I get what, you know, I suppose maybe not intentionally, but you do sort of paint what you know and what's going on. I mean, I did a few paintings around 9/11 because I was that was, you know, thinking back on it, I suppose they would have been a little bit political, I guess. Yeah, you can't help it really. It's going to seep in, but I don't want to be too didactic about it, or it tends to be, you know, art is in the eye of the beholder really ultimately. And sometimes, you know, what you intended as when you were painting it, somebody might get a completely different meaning from it when they see it. And after all, it is a visual medium. So whatever it communicates to them is absolutely valid. So I would have my own ideas about what's behind paintings, but they're not, you know, it really is down to what people see and how they perceive it. And yeah, it's up to them.
Definitely. That's, I mean, and that is, you're exactly right. Art is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, that's art in the ear of the beholder, if they're listening to your listeners as well, right?
Yes.
So are you excited for Christmas?
I am actually. I've still got Christmas shopping to do. This is like, you know, last minute. Yeah, absolutely. So I think just this year, it's just so weird. It was kind of like it's never going to happen, and then suddenly it's happening. You know? So yeah, so it's definitely happening. So yeah, I am excited. It's definitely going ahead. I am excited. I'm excited because we're actually hosting Christmas dinner, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, I hope everybody stays safe, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas. Because we deserve one, I think.
We do. We really, really do. Well, thanks a million. It's been really great talking to you today, Mo. Like, thanks a million for coming on and doing this experimental StreamYard show.
You too. My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's been really interesting to talk to you, and I have to say, you know, I honestly, I did not know that you were a painter when I heard you DJing. I didn't know you were a painter, but I hope, if anything, this art and spirituality show brings some light to the fact that of your either if people that knew you as a DJ, now they'll know you're an artist as well, or if they knew you as a painter, now they'll know that you're a DJ as well.
Great, thank you.
And I know that you've got some. You mentioned that you've got some jewelry that you designed. That's going to be. Is that going to be for sale, or is that going to be?
Well, yeah, it was in conjunction with the Irish Cancer Society. So I did some jewelry designing, which is something kind of new to me, although it sort of does tie in obviously with my using of kind of metallics and golds and silvers and things like this. So they're kind of they have star elements and kind of moons and things like that. So it does kind of tie in with my general vibe, I suppose, with artwork. So that's happening sometime in the new year. And then I also have I've designed a book cover, a painting of mine is going to be used as a book cover for a novel, which I'm super excited about because that's the first time that's ever happened. And obviously it's an Irish writer as well, so I'm a big into Irish writers, so I'm really excited about that. So I think that's kind of imminent. I think January. So two things to look forward to for 2021.
That's fantastic. So we'll look out for them. I guess they'll show up on your website when they're available, kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I'll be sticking it on all my social media and websites as I go.
Fantastic. And when can anyone who's based in Ireland, when can they expect to hear you? Ideally, in an ideal world, when can they expect to hear you DJing somewhere?
DJing, I'm actually working on a mix for kind of New Year's end of year mix. So I'll be posting that again through social media. And then gig wise, I mean, I'd love to say February, but I'd say it's probably going to be more like springtime, probably March or April, I'd say, before things get back to, giggities, I guess.
Fair. Yeah.
You know, I don't know. It's hard to know, but look, we live in hope.
We live in hope.
Can do, right?
We live in hope. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll be sure to share all of your links. And yeah, have a happy Christmas.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Thank you so much. Happy Christmas to everybody.
Happy Christmas. Bye, Mo.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Well, that was Mo Kelly there. It was Mo Kelly there. Joined us live via WhatsApp, actually. Yeah, via WhatsApp. So that was it was great to talk to her, I have to say. Very interesting, and you know, multi-talented, right? Also a painter, a DJ. She's got it all. She's got it all going on. So yeah, be sure to check out her latest mix. She's got a new mix that she's working on at the moment, but be sure to check out her latest mix. You can follow her there. She's on Mixcloud, DJ Mo Kelly. You can follow her on Mixcloud, and you can check out her latest mix, which I have to say is really good because, as we mentioned, it's called Hip Hope, and you can check it out. And as we mentioned just a moment ago, it does have references to the Black Lives Matter movement, which I think is fantastic, because the more people that can reference that, the more people that can acknowledge that movement, the more light we're going to bring on to subjects like this, and the more likely we can spread the spirit of connection. You know, spread the spirit of we're all one, we're all connected, we all have to be looking out for each other, having compassion for each other, having empathy. And that is the world that I want to be living in. And that's the world when we do things like that, when we show solidarity for different movements, that is the world that we're going to create. Essentially, it's the world that we are creating. So yeah, so big up respect for that, for having that in the mix. And yeah, big thanks to Mo Kelly for joining us today. That is actually going to be our last show. It's going to be our last show today. We're going to take a break. Well, I'm going to take a break from the Art and Spirituality show. I'm going to take a break until probably January. Hopefully in January, I'll be back on air with lots of new guests. Follow Relaks Radio page. Follow us on Twitter at Relaks Radio. And you can follow myself as well at Enlightened Dom. And you can just follow me, and you know, you'll be sure to see when those things happen. You'll be sure to see on my social media when I'm coming back on air. So yeah, it's oh my god, it's the 21st of December. What a year it's been, right? If you're following on live right now, I want to hear from you. This is the first time I'm using this StreamYard. I want to hear from you. If you're following me on the live stream, give me a message, give me an hello. Let me see if I got any messages here. Oh, we got a lovely message from Samad Aka. Samad Aka says, hello, very nice program. Thank you, Samad. Well, thanks for tuning in, Samad. I hope you're still enjoying the show. Anyone else? Have you got all your Christmas shopping done? Are you ready? Have you got your Christmas tree? Would you believe it, folks? I'm going to go and get a Christmas tree. A few weeks ago, I was on the show, and I expressed my opinion about Christmas trees. It was an honest opinion. I was anti-Christmas trees, to be honest. I was saying, I don't want to have a Christmas tree. I don't want to put a live tree in my in my sitting room. I'm against it. But what's happened is Tier 4 has happened. And as a result of that, I am going to be in London with my housemates for Christmas Day. And as a result of that, I've decided I'm going to get a Christmas tree. I'm going to go and I'm going to get one. I'm going to put my principles aside, and I'm going to get a Christmas tree. And we're going to have it in our sitting room. We're going to put decorations on it. It's going to be lovely. So that's going to be the plan for me today. I have my Christmas shopping done. I'm ahead of the game. Do you have your Christmas shopping finished? Let me know if you do. Let me know if you don't. I think I got another question coming through here. Let me see if I can read this out. Let me see. It's another question. Okay, no, it was a question for Mo, but Mo is no longer with us, so I can't answer this question, so I won't ask that question now. But thanks for tuning in today. It's been a good old run of shows, I have to say. This is show 23. It's been a good old run of shows, and I'm very grateful to all my guests that came on and was a guest on the Art and Spirituality show in the last 3 months. Can you imagine? In the last 3 months, I've had 23 guests. I'm very grateful to all of them, and I'm going to be sharing this live stream on my socials today, and I'm going to be tagging everyone who was a guest on the show. So going forward, I just want to say big thank you to everyone who's tuned in so far. Hope you have a lovely Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Yule, happy whatever you're celebrating, and be kind, be loving, be compassionate to each other out there, and have patience. And we will see you again. I'll be back. I'll be back again. I'll be back in 2021. I'll be back. Maybe on this platform. Maybe on this platform, or maybe somewhere else. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll be back in the studio if the tier 4 allows it. Maybe I'll be back in the studio. If not, I'll be live, and you can see this face live again in a studio. Until then, I say goodbye, farewell, adieu, salut, slán aháile, gurav mila matagut, arcorgi. Thank you very much, friends, and I'll see you in 2021. Cheers. Okay, that was so smooth, wasn't it? It was a perfect ending. But did it work? It didn't work. I'm still here because I haven't managed to end this thing. I wanted to close it out with a nice ad for the Relaks Radio music, and I'm going to do that right now, and then I'm going to end the show. So I'm just going to finish with the Relaks Radio music, and then that's going to be it. It's going to be smooth. It's going to be very, very smooth.